All right, it's time to get back to our Scrum process. And the last big thing in the overall process, remember we start with sprint planning, then we go into a cycle each day where we hold our daily Scrum or our stand-up, we do some work, then the next day we meet again with our daily stand-up. Then we have our sprint review with the client where we go over the deployed working value, the working code, the new features, everything added in the successfully added during the sprint to the product. And then before we head into the next sprint, it's time for the sprint retrospective. And that's what we're going to talk about now. So that's when we hold it. And it has to be before you get into sprint planning. In our schedule in 342, we do not have a particular lab time to do this. The same way that we don't have a particular lab time for the sprint review. It's handy to make sure that you as a team, you've already scheduled your sprint reviews. You should probably go ahead and book for your team yourself, get on your calendars the sprint retrospectives so that everyone knows we're going to hold the meeting at this time and not to schedule other things so that everyone can be sure to be there and be there on time. Put it on the calendar now. All right, so the Scrum Retrospective is a really important part of this inspect and adapt cycle in Scrum. Most of that cycle is about improving the product. This aspect is about improving the team, and in particular, the team's process. So it's a chance for the team to talk with each other about how the team can improve. So not only are we always trying to improve the product, we're trying to improve how we work together. A really big thing to keep in mind, and I'll keep reiterating this, is that the retrospective has a whole team focus. It's not about individual people. It's about what is the process that we as a team follow? What are the rules? What's our code of conduct? Okay. And it's about, and how well are we adhering to it? Have we made rules that are impossible for us to follow? Maybe we need new rules. What are the process and procedures? And the in general notion is that as a team goes from sort of its start to it becomes really, a solid team, worked a lot, very experienced, you can add more and more expectations. Usually it makes sense to keep things pretty simple at the beginning, master those, and then as you go along, the team gets better and better at being able to actually do the work and to follow a process. It's hard if there's tons of things to keep in mind. Well, grow it over time. But it's about the team. We're not going to talk about individual people's failings. If there are problems with you or you've got a problem with a person on the team, the way to think about this is there's got to be something wrong with our team. There's got to be something wrong with the process. There must be something wrong with the way we're treating people. We're not reaching out. How can we as a team work better? So when we've got people problems, it's a team problem, and it needs to be addressed through process changes, behavioral changes at the team level. And this is what the sprint retrospective is really getting at. Okay. It's not, though, your time to go and blame people for the sprint failing or all those broken builds and things like that. Those are team problems, okay? And so leave the blame at the door. We're not going to be blaming anyone for the problems that happened in the sprint. We're really going to be looking for ways that we can take our team process and improve, come up with new innovative ways to function. There's a lot out there that people have learned, but that doesn't mean that for the particular circumstances that you are in with your team and your client, that there aren't all sorts of changes and innovations that you're going to come up with. Now, as a new team, you're going to probably come up with some really basic things to actually get going on. there's just, and you're going to need to remind each other, yes, our code of conduct is this. We're going to really focus on, we said that we were going to do this. We don't seem to be really doing it. Let's stress this, and we're going to focus on doing it. All right. It's also a time overall to potentially revisit the team's done criteria. Remember, the done criteria is the standards by which the team decides whether or not tasks and stories are considered to be done. It's most captured, in fact, with the notion of, have we decided that this software should be, for example, added to the repository, to the main branch? What really are our standards for that code review? What's our done criteria to say it's truly done and we agree with you that it's done? As teams become more experienced and more professional, they're willing to have higher and higher standards for the reviews. Now, this is not just for code, but it's for all the tasks. So what really are the team's expectations for when we want to go to say from it's in progress to say that something is done? What do we as a team ask of the person and check to make sure that it's actually been done to the team's satisfaction? That's the done criteria. Do not confuse it with user acceptance criteria. They are not the same thing. User acceptance criteria is what our client expects the product to do. Okay? That's different from our done criteria. Our done criteria is an internal team criteria for, are we done with a task? What do we check on that task? So the retrospective is a time to revisit this and maybe the team decides there's a way to increase their done criteria in some area. Maybe that's the improvement the team wants to make in the next sprint. All right, so let's go over, so that's the high level, what the purpose is, and some of the focus. Let's actually get into some of the nitty gritty of actually the sprint retrospective meeting that you're going to hold. In 342, these are our basic guidelines for the meeting. Now, these hold, I think, for actually a lot of stuff for a regular Scrum as well. Most people are only going to need 30 minutes for these meetings. Okay, you may need a longer meeting if you have a longer sprint. The agenda that sprint retrospectives follow, there's lots of ways to do it. This is a fairly accepted standard. Unfortunately, I don't remember where I read it, but it's 5 steps. The first one, and I'll talk about it in detail now, is to set the stage. And this is where, you start off the meeting and you remind people. This is where a Scrum Master would do it, but anyone on our teams can do it. We remind people about the purpose and the behavior expected at the meeting. So it's always good sort of to set the stage. We want people to know why we're here and what was expected of people. So again, the purpose of the sprint review is to review process. Again, this whole team focus. And I'll talk about more of this later, but we're going to end up on decide on one way to improve as a team, our team process, okay? So this is our goal. We're here to talk about the team process, done criteria, whatever we want, but it's all about the team and how are we functioning as a team and how we're going to try to have a goal. We are going to find one way that the team can improve in the next sprint. There's probably lots of ways to improve, but we're going to find one. And behavior again, all right? This is, again, focus on the team, not any individual person, okay? This is very important. The team retrospective, the sprint retrospective, in many ways is about feedback. And people are going to be a little sensitive, okay? So remember all the material we've talked about on giving and receiving feedback. So this is a boss-required mechanism for a manager-required mechanism for feedback. So everyone does have to do it. So you're all expected, and it's all expected, and we've got a goal. But we work very hard to keep individuals out of this. We're not going to blame people. We're not going to attack people. It's a big thing. All right. So that's why setting the stage is important, because some people can be very upset at the start of the meeting and view it as their time that they're finally going to let someone have it. No, that's not what we're going to do. All right, so that's first step, set the stage. The next is the idea of gathering data. So we're going to pull stuff together to help us actually end up, what's the process of doing this? We're going to use in 342 keep, start, and stop. There are other ways to gather data. Oftentimes for larger sprints, teams will have the Scrum Master pull in various, bring in the burn down chart, bring in show the Scrum board, show bugs, all sorts of data and things, or feedback from the client at the sprint review, all sorts of stuff that people could mull over and think about. But we're just going to use a very simple keep, stop, and start. You'll see if you go research on the web that there are 100 ideas for sprint retrospectives, to way to liven them up and change them, because eventually you probably get bored with this mechanism. In 342, with only 4 sprints, you're not going to get bored with it. Really use it for all 4 sprint retrospectives. Okay. Then you go on to work to generate insights. So you gathered the data, and then we need some process to get people to think about what did we learn, what do we see here. We're going to go over, people are going to talk about these things, but then we're going to do a voting scheme as our mechanism. And then deciding what to do. The voting will help you figure this out, but you still need to, whatever you voted on, you're going to need to actually convey it in a single actionable step. So again, our focus is on one thing here. And then 5, you're going to close up the retrospective, and we'll talk about this idea of appreciate or appreciation. All right. So those are the steps. What's the core bulk of this is all about the gathering of data, insights, and deciding. So gather data, generate our insights, and decide. All right. Now, since you're all working remotely, it's best to do this in Miro. If you didn't have to work remotely, we would have you do this in person. I think it would work a lot. I think it works well in person. You get to see each other better. There's that better ability to be emotionally sensitive to what's going on. But you're going to do this with your cameras on, and you're going to open up your Teams channel, and you're going to make a Miro board, okay? And we're going to ask you to keep your retrospectives in Miro, and you're going to leave one retrospective board for each sprint, and so that we can come and we can actually look to see what the work was done for the retrospective. So in Miro, create a regular board. They have retrospective templates. Don't use them. Put a label or a sticky at the top of these columns that you create. Keep, start, stop. There are ways to also run retrospectives in Trello, but Trello lacks the voting features of Miro that we'll use. And Miro is just nice because it replicates much better the whiteboard with stickies. All right, so you get these columns. And the idea is that what we're going to do is we're going to have each person go and write stickies of things they want to keep for the team process, keep doing as a team, things they want to start doing as a team, and things they want to stop doing. And so you're going to write your little stickies and put them up on the board. Okay. And I want to make a mention, though, that this is very important. So I think some teams are very tempted. Oh, let's just get rid of this stupid keep thing. Let's talk about stuff we should start doing and stop doing. The keep doing is important because we need to be reminded of what's going well. We need to keep that so that we don't lose these good behaviors that we have. We want reinforcement for ourselves about what we like in our team and our team process. All right. So the first step here is that each person writes at least one start, one keep, and one stop. Okay, you can write more than 3 stickies, but each person needs to go and put one sticky in each of these columns. You're going to do this all at the same time. So all at the same time. There should be no talking during this part because people are thinking and they're writing their stickies and they're putting them on their board. Okay. And then when people are done, you'll be able to chat and say, oh, everyone done? Yeah, nope, I'm still busy. And someone could still be working and you just let that be. Okay. Remember again that we're focused on team process, not the people. By the way, so let's give you an example. So let's say someone is always late to meetings or isn't letting people know that they're going to be missing meetings and all sorts of stuff like that. So, but it is. It's one person. We all on the team know that this person is skipping, let's say, our daily stand-up. Don't phrase it as, that person needs to do something. You're going to put a sticky on there that, we're going to say, stop. You just put it down, stop missing stand-ups. No need to call out who is missing the stand-ups. It's just stop missing stand-ups. Okay. Start being on time to meetings. All right. Don't need to say who is always late. All right. Next. So we've got people, they've put their stickies up. And our next step is then each person talks about each of their stickies. And people listen to them. Okay? So maybe someone wrote a long sticky and they just read it out loud and that's enough. Maybe they wrote a short one and they need to explain it better to people. It's usually, though, there might be a little bit of conversation about it, but people need to go through each of their stickies so that people can hear it in their voice and get the personal explanation for things. All right. Then we've gone through that. Everyone's done that. So we've got all these stickies. We've all talked about them. We all know what everyone's stickies mean. Then vote on the sticky you will work on. There's all sorts of voting schemes. let's use Miro's. That's one of the reasons we're picking Miro. In Miro, there's a thumbs in the bottom menu. There's a thumbs up icon, which is for voting. Click on it. It sets up voting. Sets up voting, and do something along the lines of give 3 votes to each person. Maybe set the timer for 3 minutes. If everyone gets done with their voting before 3 minutes are up, it'll finish. But otherwise, it gives people an incentive to be like, come on, make your decisions, get this done. And basically the way it works is once you start the voting, each person sees the board, and all of these get little circles with pluses on them. And you can go and you click on it and you give that sticky a vote. And then I like the way that it's designed so that if you wanted to put all three of your votes on the same sticky, you can. If you want to put one here, one here, one here, or one here and one here, and 2 there, you can distribute your votes however you want. It's probably a good idea to start with 3 votes, keep things simple. Some teams might decide, no, I want to have more points to play with, more votes to play with. That's fine. You're welcome to change it. Anyway, once everyone has used up all their votes, the voting will end, and then Miro will crunch the data. I don't know why it takes so long, but it crunches the data, and it'll produce a report. And it'll tell you which sticky got the most votes and the second most. All right, now's the time that you as a team go into the notion of actually deciding what it is based upon that. Now you've gathered the data, you've got some insights. All right, time to make your decision. The voting is sort of the decision, but there's a really important thing now, which is you have to really turn it into words, some sort of sentence, write down one thing to do in the next sprint on a sticky in bold and large size or font or something. You gotta stick it somewhere or make a card or something so that it's really clear this is what the team has decided and voted on. This is our new improvement goal. Also, create a card in Trello board. So in your Scrum board, also create a card there so that when you go into there for your daily Scrums, there's a reminder in there that, oh yeah, we're working also as a team on this sprint to improve our process this way. This is different than the sprint goal. The sprint goal is a product goal. This generates a team process improvement goal. Okay, so we want to see it in both places. All right, so now it's time for your close. Oh, I didn't mean to say why. Why is it that we only do one thing when we know that the team maybe has a top 3, or maybe we tied in our votes? We have to find one thing, and the reason is it's hard for a team to keep in mind and do more than one process improvement. If you can get one process improvement done per sprint, think about the change that can happen to a team over the course of a year. Okay, if you're running week-long sprints and you have one process improvement per sprint, you'll have about 50 process improvements for the team. Even if you're doing 2-week sprints, you're going to have over 20 process improvements within 1 year. That's a lot of improvement. And so to help the team really master and get and embed that new process improvement, have one per sprint to work on. It's tempting to name all sorts of things, but really what you're going to find is that if you pick too many things to improve upon at once, you probably won't improve at all. It'll all just get lost as noise, and we try to do all of these things. Pick one thing and actually do it. All right. Now for closing, now this is going to seem a little strange, but I think it's a good idea, is to play what they call the appreciate game. And the appreciate game is basically each person takes a turn. So each person says what they appreciate about their teammates and how they make the team better. Come up with something nice to say about people, basically. Come up nice, something that positive. You can direct your positive message at a certain person. That's actually fine. Again, praising individuals, I'm fine with it. If you are going to praise an individual, maybe praise a couple individuals. We want to spread it out. Otherwise, it's probably best actually to focus on, I really like it when we as a team do this. I'm finding that when we have done this, this has been really great for the team, and I really like it. It's just kind of like drawing back on the keep doing, but it's a good way to close again, and to tell people how you appreciate them and you're thankful for the work that they're doing. Maybe you noticed something really great. Maybe someone helped you and you want to thank them for that. This is the time. Take a moment and do this. Wrap up your meeting like this. This is really nice. And then, by the way, for our purposes, yes, take the team picture. Okay? Take the team picture and post into the team's channel. Okay? We need to know that who was actually there, that you actually all participated in your retrospective. Retrospectives don't work when people are skipping them and not there. So that's the basics of a retrospective.